السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. حدثنا شعبة قال أخبرني علقمة بن مرثد سمعت سعد بن عبيدة عن أبي عبد الرحمن السلمي عن عثمان رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. Uthman narrated radiallahu anhu that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the best amongst you, the Muslims, are those who learn the Quran and teach it. So that's the hadith for today. Yesterday we mentioned tips for parents. Today, inshallah, we will talk about tips for teachers. It is important, first and foremost, that parents find a good teacher. The Holy Quran cannot be learnt without a teacher. Even the Prophet ﷺ learned through Jibreel alayhi, and then similarly Allah's Messenger ﷺ taught the Holy Quran and listened to it from his companions Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een. There are some people who endeavour on learning the Quran on their own. It can be a tedious task, and those who have done it, it can be very difficult, especially if you're an adult with family life, work life, routine, etc. The benefit of a good teacher is that it will correct one's recitation and also the tajweed and the pronunciation. And from my own experience of teaching children in Hifdh class who are mainly ex-students of Darul Ulooms or left other madrasahs that run from home. One thing I know is there was a lot of emphasis on sabak, page, 2 page, basically the new lesson, just finish it. There wasn't much emphasis on revision door, and there were other issues as well. So I'm only giving this as guidance and tips, the problems I've seen with certain classes and teachers. Not saying I'm a perfect teacher or my class is perfect, but there were some obvious, pretty blatant issues, and one big problem was that the classes were full to the brim. I think, and I strongly believe, that having 15 to 20 students in a Hifdh class is far too much. Nazir, like a normal tajweed class, is different, 15 to 20 is fine, but in a Hifdh class, that was one issue. And then a lot of these classes weren't even doing full time. They were like 2 hours, 2 hours 15 minutes, which is far too less when you've got 20 kids. How do you do the sabak para door? And then another issue I saw was some were charging sky-high fees. So not being judgmental, but anyone can do the maths. When you've got 20 children and it's £15 a week, some madrasahs are turning into a business. So it's just a warning for parents that look at these things. If you notice these things, the classes are overcrowded, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a successful teacher, as some parents assume that, oh, the classes are full, बहुत बच्चे हैं तो माशाल्लाह मौलवी साहब भी बहुत कामयाब है. That's not a rule. There's high demand for Hafiz classes, so we need to focus on quantity, and we need to some teachers are too focused on quantity, that they think if they've got 20 children it's a successful class. There's no focus on quality. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all sincerity and give us the ability to teach for His pleasure. So the tips for teachers, first and foremost, is having a pure intention. Whether it's memorizing Quran or doing anything, it should be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't make your madrasa class into a business, money making. Secondly, Ali radiallahu anhu, he commented on the verse وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا, that recite the Quran in a slow, pleasant tone and style. He mentioned that tartil is tajweed of the letters and recognizes the place of waqf. So it's very important before starting Hifdh that the tajweed is rectified and the pronunciation is correct. Many children, they just delve into Hafiz class, jump in the deep end, and the tajweed is sometimes horrific to listen to. Don't be rigid in certain rules like age limits, like a lot of madrasas do. We only take on boys who are 8, 9, 10. If you're 11 years old, if you're 11, you can't join our Hafidh class. There is no real age when to start Hifdh, and it's never too late. I know I did mention yesterday it's better younger, but it's not a rule. It's not set in stone. It's certainly not gospel. Some teachers do recommend 11, and some teachers say 7. 11 simply because their Quran is of standard, good standard of tajweed and pronunciation. Rule number 4, or tip number 4, ensure that the students have one specific copy of the Quran. So we've got to understand a visual image of the page leaves an imprint in the mind, making it easier to recall. So rather than every year the child loses the Quran, has a new Quran, obviously you will also circle mistakes. And for the students, they should also look inside so they can see the mistakes. Number 5, encourage the students to read melodiously and beautify the recitation. We've noticed in Hifdh class, everything's basically in Ferrari mode or Formula 1 mode. Vum, 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 everything's fast. The Quran is fast, the memorization is fast, Dawr is fast, Sabak is fast. Because I'm in Hafidh class. No, that's incorrect. Quran is still Quran. We're doing Nadhara, looking inside, or your Hifdh student. Number 6 for the teachers is also keep rewards and charts. I know we mentioned yesterday for the parents to reward them, but children also need some motivation from their teachers. Number 7, remember that shaitan will always stop meritorious deeds, and memorizing the Quran is very virtuous. Remind your students and yourself the virtues of being a teacher and memorizing the Holy Quran. On that note, with holidays as well, try not to give too many holidays. Some madrasas give 6 weeks off in summer, then another 4 weeks off in Ramadan, Christmas 2 weeks, Easter 2 weeks. And this can be disastrous in Hafidh class because the children will just forget it. Teachers can't be defensive and say, well, they should sit at home. Kids are kids. They're human beings. Number 8, Ustad should always try and stay in a state of wudu. Inna Allah yuhibbu tawabin wa yuhibbul mutatahhirin. Allah loves those who turn unto Him in repentance and love those who purify themselves. So this will also have an effect. Your own spirituality, doing dhikr before class, making dua for your students. Number 9, this is a rare random one, but I read online about a particular Ustad who had the best Hifdh students in town. Why? End of every month he would gather the students one evening. So particularly in winter, it's very easy after Isha, and they would lead Salah, Nafil or Tahajjud if you want to call it, and it wouldn't be much. It would be like Juz Amma or Surah Baqarah, easy. So they gain confidence. I have tried and tested this myself. It works fantastically. It was hard initially, but it prepares them for Taraweeh, and we know Taraweeh is the litmus test for every Hafidh. Number 10, there is no excuse or justification for physical beating of any child. Many teachers say we do it for your own good. Then show me a hadith that Prophet ﷺ beat up the Sahaba beat up their children or students. Teachers need to control their anger, and if they can't, they need therapy. It's as simple as that. Also remind them adab and etiquette of the Quran, not to draw in it, not to touch the Quran with dirty hands or fingers when they're eating. And very important, hold the Quran in your right hand. I live on a street which has a large madrasa, and I see majority of the children holding the Quran in the left hand. We see the alima class holding the kitabs in the left hand, and it just gives me an image of the madrasa. It's not judgmental at all. It's not judgmental. People overuse that word. It just tells me if you have not taught your students basic etiquette, then I'd like to know what you're teaching them. So these are a few tips for teachers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability, all of us, all teachers, to act upon what has been said and implement these tips. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ سُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ بِحَمْدِي سُبْحَانَكَ اللَّهُمَّ وَبِحَمْدِكَ وَنَشْهَدُ أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ نَسْتَغْفِرُكَ